Existence is terrifying. The formation of a seemingly infinite universe that we will never know or understand completely, that has no known birth or expiration date, where you, a tiny little blip amongst the innumerable galaxies and planets, are supposed to find your place, take care of yourself, and create some sort of meaning within your life until you reach your final demise, is an unquenchable task. The burden of being a living, breathing organism in a place that is technically your home ground, but at the same time feels completely foreign to you in some way, can at some times be unbearable. Every so often, I get the feeling that I can only describe as total numbness. I'm alive and doing all the things in my routine that usually make me feel good. I'm working on my channel, I'm going to the gym, getting a tan, but all of those things feel much more lifeless. Like I'm still doing them, but on these types of days, each act I partake in has an intermittent sigh of dread. All of a sudden, tearing down my muscle fibers to make them grow back stronger, looking out the window at the beautiful scenery of the trees swaying and the sun setting, and pressing the cut and move key in Premiere Pro to continue onward in the editing of a video ceases to produce the joy and color that it usually evokes out of the universe for me, and I fall into what I wouldn't necessarily call depression or nihilism, but rather the feeling of not feeling. For the first couple decades of my life, I lacked the tools required to understand and reflect on these days properly. Partly because I didn't realize that literally everyone feels this way sometimes. No matter how much you've improved yourself, what type of success you're at, or how many philosophy books that you've read to combat this feeling. You are definitely not alone in this struggle, and it's important to take note of that in case you think that no one understands what you're going through right now. But it's also due in part to not adequately categorizing, observing, and acting upon this feeling of not feeling properly. After allowing myself to really peer into this occasional lack of sensing the world and my relationship to it, I found that there are 3 strange ways in which I can make existing during these times of dread far less dreadful. The breath. Recently, I've been trying to discover ways in which I can reconnect to my bodily sensations and take charge over my reactive brain so I can identify and disrupt this feeling of not feeling whenever it decides to sporadically come out of me. And a huge contributor to me becoming more self-aware and transporting back into the present has been breath work. Oftentimes, when we sense ourselves starting to feel things less than we normally do in life, it can trigger a downward spiral of negative thoughts, which then lead to anxiety, confusion, and brief hopelessness. To break this automatic response of randomly feeling indifferent towards things, we need to change our current state of being. Your breath is one of the only processes of your physical body in which you can turn it from automatic to manual. And the rhythm and cadence of your breath is largely responsible for regulating your nervous system. So let's say you're going through your daily tasks, but they just aren't producing the same amount of joy and emotion that they usually do, and you start to feel this feeling of not feeling creep up on you. When something triggers your nervous system and it perceives it as a potential threat, it throws your equilibrium off and starts to put your body into flight or fight mode, and your adrenaline kicks in, your blood flow increases, and your heart starts pumping out of your chest. To calm down and get a better grip over this autonomic nervous system response and regain conscious control over the uncontrollable indifference that you might feel towards life right now, try this breathwork exercise. So first, just make sure you breathe all the way out and get all the air out of your lungs. Then breathe in through your nose slowly and as much as you can. And just when you think you've breathed in enough, take one last tiny breath, like hold it for half a second, then breathe all the way out through your mouth. After you do this a few times, you're gonna start to feel your body relax and you'll be far more present-minded, which will allow you to really internalize and feel and accept this feeling of not feeling. A lot of times, when people, including my past self, get struck with the feeling of not feeling, they will try to take their minds away from the present to escape it, in an attempt to flee from the impending reality of a life that has no rhyme or reason without us humans giving meaning to everything. But instead of trying to escape it, like you usually do this breathwork routine. And then sit with this feeling, recognize it, and know that it is a symptom of being human. When you can get to the point of self-awareness where you can stop yourself when you're automatically responding or reacting to something, you can say to yourself, I know this feeling, I've been here before, I know how to handle it, and then you can accept it and allow yourself to feel it, and you can do that without judgment, you've won. The art of looking at art. There is something deeply therapeutic about staring at a moment in time. The present is an ever-escaping string of transparent silk that falls through our fingertips every time we try to grab onto it. But a thought, feeling, or imagination captured through art suspends that moment through eternity and lets us stop the unstoppable force that is time. In a world where flashing lights, 6-second dopamine bursts, and constant overconsumption of, well, everything runs rampant, it's become all the more important to take time to digest things slowly. And art is the gateway that gives us the means in which to do so. Now, when I say art, you might be confused, so let me clarify. The art in which I find most comforting and nurturing in the times of not feeling are paintings, drawings, and photos. And sure, you can stare and contemplate different pieces of art related to this on your computer screen, but it's a completely different experience entirely to do so in real life at a museum. So, in an effort to gain a deeper insight into the feeling of not feeling, that's what I did. When I arrived, I was not looking for any specific type of painting. It didn't have to be something that I assumed was related to the feeling of not feeling. It just needed to be something that I could clearly see was created by another human trying to express their feelings in physical form. When I looked at the paintings, I could see the meticulousness of each stroke, the texture caused by the lifting and pressing of the brush, and the expressions of each small face on the canvas, each with their own intricacies and emotion, that altogether formed a coherent frame. By gazing and contemplating pieces of art for long enough, you start to guess what the artist was trying to convey. What might have they been going through at that time? Were they too just trying to figure out their existence through a creative outlet? And the more I got lost in these pieces, the more I realized how deeply humanizing the entire experience was. It was as if each piece was the artist's way of saying, "Don't worry, viewer, I'm trying to figure out what's going on too. This is the only way I can make sense of it all." A sense of calmness took me over, knowing that I was surrounded by all these small fragments of time. Sometimes the emotions of each artist flooded my psyche and brought my senses back to feeling. But for other pieces, it simply just reminded me of the brevity of time, the both deeply meaningful but meaningless, logical but illogical event that was life, and how to find solace within this through my own interpretation. One of the reasons most humans these days lack the skills needed to pay attention to simple, still images and art pieces is due to our tendency to pay attention to the most memorable and flashy information, like quick, engaging videos or spectacles, rather than the most pertinent or helpful, like moving and thinking slowly and intently and feeling deeply through breathwork and contemplation. It's a tendency that's described in detail in the book summary that I'm currently reading on the sponsor of today's video, Shortform. For those who aren't familiar with Shortform, it is the platform for the best book guides to nonfiction books. They are like superpowered book summaries. They give comprehensive coverage of all the book's key ideas, clearly and simply explained, as well as helpful exercises that allow you to understand the book deeper. It's basically like your smartest friend teaching you about a book. The book summary that I'm in the middle of reading that I briefly mentioned about a second ago is The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dobelli. And in that book summary, he explains how it takes less time and energy to accept the flashiest information available than to evaluate the entire situation. And there's plenty of other biases and effects that humans use that are totally illogical that we need to stop doing as much if you want to start thinking more clearly. And I could use that because I feel like a fool sometimes. 3 genres I think you guys would really like are psychology, philosophy, and self-improvement. You are never going to run out of valuable information to read, so to get 5 days of unlimited access and an additional 20% discount on the annual subscription, you can join Shortform through my special link, shortform.com/Cole, or click the link in the description. And this will give you access to thousands of book guides for the price of just 1 book a month, so go take advantage of that offer. The Stranger Connection. The discovery of this third thing starts with a desperate need. It was about a week ago, and I was faced with the now rare occasion of the feeling of not feeling. I knew that it was in part due to not breaking out of my routine for so long and being cooped up inside, so I decided to drive over to a local public pool made with natural spring water that spans over 200 yards called the Barton Springs Pool. I got my ticket and walked up to the entrance gate, where the dude who was to scan my ticket was waiting behind a window. As he slid open the window and scanned my ticket, I looked down and I noticed that he was reading some sort of comic or manga on his phone. Being that I am very much into manga myself, I asked him what he was reading. He told me he was reading a manga called Spy X Family, and without me asking, proceeded to explain the entire plot of the story. I listened intently as the guy passionately went into detail about the premise of the manga and how each family member interacted with each other in this action-packed spy story. After asking some follow-up questions and having them answered, I asked him if he had ever read my favorite manga, which is Berserk. He said he had, and he was saddened by the pretty recent passing of the author, which is Kentaro Miura, and I showed him my guts tattoo on my arm. His face lit up, and he smiled for what seemed to be to me the first time his entire day at work, which in turn made me smile and almost made me forget that I was feeling nothing before this. After I went in and swam for a while, I sat down by the pool and contemplated that conversation I had with that stranger. It may have been totally unintentional, but I'm sure that brief interaction with that guy made him feel more understood and less lonely today. Being face to face with another human and knowing that you sparked or aroused some sort of emotion or connection with them mirrors that same sort of experience onto you. To feel that sense of connection through an act of unconditional kindness, no matter how small, makes existence far more bearable. I truly believe that acts of service are one of the most meaningful and enriching things you can do to feel your existence more and to stop overthinking and over-obsessing about yourself. Jerome Kagan, professor of child psychology at Harvard, once said, "For every act of cruelty in the world, there are hundreds of small acts of kindness and connection." Many of us want to believe that the world is much crueler than it is, and while there is plenty of evil and suffering that exists, there is far more good that is done on a daily basis that gets swept under the rug, since humans are naturally attracted to drama and negativity. A simple conversation with a stranger, a genuine smile and thank you to the cashier, or calling or texting a friend to let you know you care about them and you're there for them could create a massive ripple effect through time, and is simultaneously one of the best ways to live a meaningful life. And slowly but surely, when you go back to tearing down your muscle fibers, editing in Premiere Pro, or looking out the window at the trees, your existence will make you feel yet again. Thank you to all my patrons who are helping to support this channel on Patreon. If you don't know what that is, it's a platform separate from YouTube where I'm putting out exclusive content, and you can talk to me one-on-one over the phone on there. If you want to check that out, link in the description, patreon.com/ColeHastings. If you enjoy my more philosophical type of videos, then check out this video right here. It is kind of similar to this one in terms of existentialism and philosophy. Hope you enjoy that one, and that is it. I'm signing off. Peace.